Good afternoon and good evening. My name is Carlos Sassiter, and I serve as Assistant Vice President for Student Engagement in the Office of Campus Life. Thank you for joining our student webinar today. We realized that AU's announcement last week may have created stress or anxiety for you and your family. We also realized that you all were looking forward to returning to campus or beginning your college experience. We too are saddened that we will be unable to provide a campus experience for you this fall. Your health and safety are of utmost concern as we manage uncertainties created by this pandemic. We miss you and we look forward to seeing you on campus soon. The webinar today is an opportunity for us to provide updates from our respective areas and to address your concerns. We will begin with panelist introductions and then follow with specific information being provided by each panelist. Next will be a Q&A session, so please submit your questions accordingly. At this time, I would ask that each panelist provide self-introductions, starting with our Dean of Students.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here this afternoon, this evening, this morning, wherever it is, whatever time it might be where you are at. My name is Jeff Brown. I serve as the Dean of Students here at American University. Glad you're here.
Residence Life.
Yeah, hi, everybody. My name is Martin Sagendorf. I'm the Associate Director of Housing Assignments and Communication, and I'll be talking to you with Ashley, who I'll pass it to now, about housing and residence life. So, Ashley.
Thanks, Martin. Hey, everyone. Good to see you all virtually today. My name is Ashley Boltrashuk, and in all pronouns, and I'm the Senior Associate Director for Residence Life, and looking forward to speaking with you all today.
Thank you. Academic Affairs.
Carlos, I'm having trouble hearing you. I can't tell who you called on.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, Academic Affairs. I'm sorry, I'll speak a little louder.
Okay, I'm going to jump in just because I'm here. So I'm Jessica Waters. I'm the Dean of Undergraduate Education and Vice Provost for Academic Student Services. For those of you who are not in DC, we're experiencing a really heavy thunderstorm. So if some of us are going in and out, that may be why. Just a heads up.
Thank you. Financial aid.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shirlene McDonald. I'm one of the Associate Directors in the Financial Aid Office. Thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to trying to answer some of your questions, and we do truly miss you.
Student billing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janelle Clothier. I'm the Director of AU Central.
Thank you, Janelle. We will return to Jeff.
Great. Thank you, Carlos. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of an overview here, just a few minutes, and certainly we want to hear your questions. So again, as Carlos said, please provide us your questions as you're going through here. But I'm representing several of the areas that fall under health and well-being. And I'm going to just give you some brief, broad information on some of the areas that I work really closely with. Overall, I want to let you know that as we move to the fall semester, the services that fall under kind of the health and wellness area are still going to be accessible pretty much as they were in late spring. And I'll go into a little bit more detail here. The best place for you to find out information on specific things such as the Counseling Center, Health Promotions and Advocacy, the Counseling Center, the Health Center, all of those things will still remain to be to seek out the website for those areas. Those will be the places that you can find out how to make appointments, how to access resources, and how to get in contact with people in those areas. The key exception to that is going to be our health center. And I want to highlight on behalf of Dr. Reitman a few points regarding the health center, because they do operate a little bit differently during this time. So the health center will be able to offer testing to our students for COVID-19 for any student that is in the DC area. So once we have this semester going, we will be offering that testing Monday through Friday on campus at a site that is to be determined, and we will have that on the website when we have the location. Unlike some of our other campus services that will remain accessible virtually, the health center will be open for students Monday through Friday from 8 to 5:30. So this is one of the few exceptions to that kind of operating virtually piece. So during those times, our students you may be seen in person at our health center. We also will be able to continue to do telehealth services for students who are specifically in the District of Columbia. and that includes any of our psychiatric services that would be accessible through the Student Health Center. So wanted to highlight those specific areas of our Student Health Centers. Those are a little bit different than some of the other areas. But again, in terms of accessing Dean of Students, our Counseling Center, anything through Health Promotions and our Advocacy Center, please make sure that you're reaching out to those websites or emailing, and we will make sure we direct you to the right people. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next will be Housing and Residence Life.
Thanks so much, Carlos. So again, thank you for taking the time to speak with us this afternoon. Many of you, if you applied for campus housing at any point with us over the past few months, you received lots of different iterations of what we were expecting the fall to look like. And we know that many of you and us, we are saddened that we won't be in person in the fall as we initially anticipated. And so what we've tried to do is, while we know that residential experience component with our student staff and our live-in staff, we were looking forward to bringing that to you just as much as we hope that you were looking forward to engaging in that community. And we know that we'll be back at some point to be able to make that happen with you all. For now, what we're trying to do is make the transition to now being fully virtual and not on campus within our smaller communities a little bit easier. And so I'm going to ask Martin to share a little bit about what we've done as a team to try to set you up for success as we navigate the next couple of months and continue to plan in light of this pandemic that we're all trying to figure out how to make work with and for us as safely as possible.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. So if anyone wants to follow along, I'll be covering some topics that are on the Housing and Residence Life webpage. So if anyone would like to, you can just go to our homepage, and under announcements, there is a section titled On-Campus Residence. So this page is a summary of what we sent to students with an on-campus housing assignment as of last Thursday. You can actually see a copy of the email as well that we sent. So what I'll do is I'll give a quick overview of some of the points, as Ashley mentioned, what we've done to try to make this kind of transition from the residential experience for the fall as smooth as possible. So what we, our goal was to, get ahead of as much of this for you and set you up to have to do as little as possible. So with that in mind, one of the main pieces is, what happens with my housing assignment, and, billing had already gone out. So where does that stand? So on that end, I believe as of Thursday last week, had already removed all of the housing charges for everybody for the fall semester. So we did that very quickly. And with that in mind, I think probably we'll have some of the other presenters talking a little bit more about what that may look like in terms of if you would receive a refund or if that would be credited somewhere else. But just to note that we've done that, and I also work closely with our dining team, and they've removed dining charges if you had a meal plan. So with that in mind, that should be pretty well resolved for everybody, but we can certainly take questions. And then one of the other pieces that was coming up as we were planning for the fall was our ship ahead program. So, we had talked with a lot of you about, shipping things ahead to make move-in very smooth. And obviously now that we're not going to have you arriving here in August, we've been working very closely with our our mail services department. And as of the end of last week, they had stopped receiving anything that was being sent to campus, and they were returning it to sender. And the same thing was for anything that had been received to date. So basically, if you send something from your home address, we're sending it right back to you. There's no cost for you on that end. And then in terms of if you send something maybe through Amazon to your campus address, we will be sending that back to any retailers that had sent things on your behalf. So on your end, you're just going to want to make sure that you initiate any refund processes and cancellations so that when they receive it back, everything is smooth for you there. Additionally, one of the other big pieces that we line up for the fall is using some of our vendor services. So again, we have the fine details about this on our webpage, but if you were to have rented a My Fridge rental, a lockbox, or if you purchased anything from OCM, which is our bedding provider, you'll have access to information about your options there, and those different vendors will be reaching out to you to share different options, which are generally speaking a refund or a few other pieces that they can do for you there. And then we also want to reiterate that if anyone is a returning student and maybe you used UPS on campus store items when we closed in March, UPS, we've worked with them so they're aware of the change, and they have some options lined up for you to either continue storing things or potentially to ship them. So we have a web page that they built out for AU students last week, so you have access to that. And then otherwise, I think the main pieces I would just share are that we're still working to determine what the spring will look like. I think everyone can appreciate that, things are in flux and we're, going to have to wait a little bit until we know all the fine details. But right now, we're planning to update our webpage and start communicating with students in early November about what the spring semester will look like in terms of, housing rates, what buildings will be available, everything that you're going to want to know there. So we appreciate your patience with that. And by all means, we will be reaching out through your AU email as soon as we have those details. So please, keep an eye out there. And then otherwise, we are providing very limited emergency housing for the fall semester. So I think many people, if that was of interest, have probably already acted on that. But on our webpage, we also have the email address if that's something that you feel like you need. And then there's some more details there to guide you if that is of interest. And then otherwise, kind of going forward, if you need anything from Housing and Residence Life, you can email us at housing@american.edu. We also have a chat feature on the homepage of our website, and it's been very popular. So again, if there's anything that you have questions going forward, please connect with our staff there. And then the one final piece I will note, because I imagine we have some folks who maybe have off-campus leases, is that if that is something you have questions about, if you go to the homepage of our website, we also have details there about some resources and some information. And we're also looking forward to putting a webinar together on that, which should be Wednesday evening. So more details with that will also be posted on our website. And that's about it for Housing and Residence Life.
Thank you, Martin and Ashley. Next, we will have Academic Affairs.
Hi, everyone. Again, it's Jessica Waters, Dean of Undergraduate Education. I will note the thunderstorm is right over my house, so apologies for any booms and flashes of light. I wanted to quickly talk about 3 things and then really happy to get to your questions at the end. One is classes and what classes will look like in the fall. 2 is the question of academic supports, including advising. And then 3 is this question of, how do we form community, particularly if we're not all in the same place. So I'll speak briefly to each of those. And I know some of my colleagues also have thoughts on some of those questions as well. First on the question of classes, as I think all of you have heard, all of our classes in the fall will move to an online modality. We will have very limited residential space and all of our students will be taking their classes online. Again, as we heard, as people said in the beginning of the call, we wish we were in person, but I do want to assure you that when we think about what fall online classes will look like, I think it's going to be a really different experience than some people may have had in the spring, whether it was at AU or at another institution or at their high schools. In the spring, we were doing a pivot, and I think we pivoted well, but we had to pivot really, really quickly to move all of the material that was meant to be in person online. The fall looks different because our faculty have spent the entire summer and much of the spring, frankly, getting ready to do this work online and do it well, right? To take all of the content and expertise that they have and figure out a way to do this online in a way that engages students, highlights the expertise, and makes sure that all of our students have the learning experience that you come to expect when you come to AU. So know that our faculty and staff have been working all summer to figure out what are the new platforms, what are the most interesting ways to engage students, how do we use all these breakout features on all our different platforms, can we use Canvas instead of Blackboard, how do we do Zoom, how do we do all these different channels, and it really I think will make a difference in the way that folks experience classes in the fall. So please know that all of our classes are moving forward. Every degree program that we have, we are making sure that each of our classes will be offered. We are committed to making sure that every student can make the academic progress they need to make in the fall with all of our online offerings and offered in the highest quality that we possibly can. It's funny because we go into teaching. I'm a faculty member in SBA. Many of us go into teaching because we love the interaction with students, right? That's what we love. And it's hard for us too to wrap our heads around, like, what do you mean I'm not going to interact with all of my students in person? On the other hand, there are some really interesting opportunities that are arising from this. I'm sure some of you have experienced that you connect with people in different ways in some of these online settings, and the ability to do small breakouts or to do follow-up work is heightened in some of these online settings. And also the ability to have really interesting guest speakers and things like that. One of the things I was working on today is connecting with our alums from all over the DC region who have expertise in every policy or education or science or international service area you can imagine. And they're all really interested in, hey, can I Zoom into a class for 20 minutes? How can I connect with students in your classes? Can I join a book club with your students? So we're seeing opportunities that we haven't seen before. So if we're looking for the silver lining in any of this, I think it's that. It's new ways of thinking about learning. Two, on academic support, I wanted to make sure you are all aware that all of our academic support will continue to be fully available. Our advisors are fully prepared to work with each of their students individually, as they always do, and provide full advising across the 4 years at AU or graduate experiences at AU. All of our academic support is fully prepared to launch virtually, whether it's our writing center, our quantitative support, our academic coaching, our tutoring, our supplemental instruction. All of those pieces will move forward full throttle, and have plans to engage students both in online settings through email and platforms that we've used over the years, but then also to make sure that we're available real time, right? Making sure that each of our student support offices has times when you can get online and find a human on the other end, right? We'll be doing live chats, live Zoom calls where people can just drop in and ask all of their questions. So making sure that support is available across the board, whether it's academic support or advising across all of our schools and colleges. And then finally, I wanted to focus a little bit on community and how do we do this? How do you do this in online settings? And I'm sure many of you have been doing it with family and friends and trying to figure out, like, what is this new normal and how do I make this work? We were talking before this call, I have 2 school-age kids at home who are in DC public schools, and we're trying to figure out how do we make that work and how do they stay connected with their friends and how do we form that community? But I think one thing to keep in mind is college is all about transition, right? Y'all have been through this transition in many different ways, and you have risen to the occasion each time. And part of that is because we've got your back, right? The staff and faculty and community at AU, we're going through this with you. We're going through it in our own personal lives with our families and our kids and our loved ones and our friends. And we're also here for you. So as we go through these transitions, we're all in it together, right? We're all figuring out these various pieces. And y'all know how to do this. And we're here to back you up and make sure all that resilience that you have developed over the years that got you to this point, we're here to make sure that comes out full force in the fall. So, classes, academic support, and community are the 3 big areas that we're focusing on.
Thank you, Jessica. Next, we'll have Charlene.
Hello, everyone. I'm Charlene, once again, McDonald from the Financial Aid Office. And I know many of you have questions about how the change in modality is going to impact your financial aid eligibility. And what I want to reassure you is really to let you know 3 things. First, as Dean Waters has indicated, you're not alone. You have a whole team behind you, including all of the financial aid office. Everyone has been assigned a financial aid counselor who's there to answer your calls. We are all, even though we're virtual, we're all available Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. Eastern time. And so if you have a question, please reach out to your academic advisor and make sure, sorry, I had to go off camera really quickly, and make sure to go to the financial aid main homepage and select the contact us option to find your financial aid counselor. Their number is listed so that each individual counselor's number is listed on the site. So please reach out to them. We're here to support you. So that's the very first piece. If you have a question, don't hesitate, reach out and we're happy to answer. Second, the change in modality actually doesn't change eligibility. A lot of people are under the impression that because now that we're all remote and distance learning, that all of a sudden your financial aid changes. Not necessarily. The financial aid office assumes that everyone will still incur cost for housing and for meals and for their tuition and books and supplies. And so the financial aid office and the financial aid award that you've received are based on all of those costs. It's only if you notify our office that there has been a change, that you will not incur certain costs, that we'll go ahead and amend what we have offered you. But again, the assumption is everyone will continue to need to cover all of the expenses that you typically would cover with the financial aid that you've received. So the change in modality does not change your eligibility. Okay, so that's the second piece. And the very last piece that I will tell my students and families is that this is for the fall. We don't know what spring looks like as of yet. And so your financial aid will remain as is for the spring. We're hoping that we will be able to resume, our normal semester in the spring. And so that's the reason that there hasn't been any changes to spring. And for students, and I get this question all the time, well, what if I don't need all the assistance that I've received for the fall? Can I change or amend the amount that I've decided to accept? Absolutely. Please reach out to our office and let us know whether or not you would like to change or cancel any awards that you've received thus far. I'm here to answer questions. There have been a number of questions regarding what federal work study and those positions will look like. And so I want to make sure that you understand that the university is planning as much as possible to offer opportunities for our students. There is a major restriction to federal work study though. Those who have been awarded within the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia, things will operate as normal. However, for those of our students who are elsewhere in the country and around the world, unfortunately, federal work study will not be available to you. And we know that for some, that particular type of assistance is critical. Please reach out to our office. We understand that, and we are here to try and support you and find ways to ensure that you have the support and the assistance that you need. That's it for now. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Shirley. Next, we'll have Janelle from AU Central Student Building.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to build on, before I jump into the AU Central things, I want to jump in on, or just build on a little bit of what Shirlene talked about, employment opportunities. Students should watch their email. Tomorrow, our Career Center will be sending out an email to students, advising them of some online opportunities and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that that's coming your way tomorrow, so to keep an eye out for it. Now, all of the fun stuff with your bills. So as you all know, the bill deadline was pushed back to August 12th. It was due August 1st, and then with all these changes, we bumped it back to August 12th. And that will give everybody time to, it took us the time to get your housing off, to make the adjustment to your tuition, to remove the student the student activities fee reduction and the sports center fee. So that is giving everybody some opportunities to readjust and keep an eye out for their bill due date of August 12th. The 10% discount has already been applied to our undergraduates and our graduates and our law school students. And if you've signed up for a monthly payment plan, your payment plan will be adjusted as well. A couple things to keep an eye out from other deadlines. I know you're getting deadline heavy, but for students with needing health insurance waived, there's an opportunity for you to submit documentation to make sure that your health insurance satisfies university requirements. The deadline to get the health insurance waiver submitted is September 12th, I think. Let me double check that. Where are my notes? September 18th, sorry about that. If you've already paid your balance in full and you have a balance on your account, the Office of Student Accounts is in the process of sending refunds. So it's really important. They're going to start processing them this week with anticipation that the first refunds are going to start going out on Friday. We strongly, strongly encourage you to sign up for ACH direct deposit. It's the fastest way to get your refund back in your bank account. If that isn't an option for you and you're still preferring a paper check, your students, you should go in and make sure that your permanent address is up to date so we mail it to the right place. For our students that have paid with a wire, our international students, if you're interested in having your refund wired back to you, please send an email to AU Central and we will walk you through the process of getting the things that we need from you to send that wire transfer. If you have any questions of things that are, your bill's kind of fluid right now, so things are coming on, things are coming off, you've got other payments coming in, any questions, feel free to contact AU Central. We too use chat. We are at aucentral@american.edu. If we don't know the answers, we work very, very closely with our colleagues. So if it's something that we can't fix, we know that we're going to send it over to Martin and he can fix it. Same thing with our colleagues in financial aid. So just always feel comfortable starting with us. I guess the final thing I wanted to talk about were the students that have paid with 529 plans. That will, even if your check hasn't been cashed, it's probably in the pipeline. So that payment will get credited to your student account. You should consult with your 529 plan to see what they want you to do with that refund. So those I think are sort of the high points of what's going on with your bill. Again, we're here to answer any questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Next, we will have our Q&A session. Please note that on the university's website on the coronavirus, there's an extensive list of Q&As from all areas of the university. We may direct you to that if we're unable to answer your question or provide follow-up in another measure. But we're going to go ahead and jump in and answer as many questions as we can. The first question is, how do we waive the UPass and technology fees? Janelle?
So the technology fee is still considered a mandatory fee. So that one cannot be waived. UPass, if students are outside of the DC area, there will be a waiver process coming up. It's going to be posted. It obviously will be in the Q&A when it's ready and available. And it will also be on the house or the parking website. So that is forthcoming, a waiver for that.
Thank you. The next question, this is a rather long question. We may not be able to answer all of it, but we will attempt to. Will AU students living off campus and in the DC, DMV area be able to keep their AU-issued health insurance services, or will they need to hire new ones? If so, is the ambulance service still covered if living off campus? What hospitals would AU students be sent to be diagnosed with COVID-19? Does Care First have a specific list, or will they cover any facility chosen? Our student health center director was not available today. He did send a list of general options that will be available that was shared with you earlier. I do advise you to look to our Q&A on the website for more specific information. They are working on an exhaustive list of Q&As for the health center, which should be coming out shortly. So please refer to that Q&A section of the website. If that does not answer any of your questions, please reach out directly to the Student Health Center and they'll be able to provide any type of assistance or follow-up that's needed. What happens if the UPass waiver does not go up, isn't waived by August 12th? Janelle?
So if it's still in your bill at the due date, I would suggest that you just go ahead and pay everything except for that UPass fee. And then, we do not assess late fees or any penalties until mid-September. So even if that, $130 some is still on there, it's okay not to pay that until we know what's going to happen with the waiver process.
Thank you. What dining facilities will be open for those still in the DC area? What other center facilities will be open? Who will be living in the frequency as it is an AU managed property, but who will be living there? Will it be an empty residence hall, even though it is not a typical dorm? I'm going to refer this question to Ashley and Martin.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, Carlos. And thanks for those questions. When it comes to, Martin, if you're good with this, I'll start with the food options. So dining will be limited on and around campus. The majority of the services that will be available in the area will be those that are privately owned by companies. So right now, for those of you who have been on campus previously or familiar with the area, Wagshaw's, which is a staple and a beloved place for folks, is open and is happy to be serving customers currently, along with a number of the other rotational stores. The Starbucks has just opened back up, so we know that people are having some feelings about that as well. So there are food options, and all of our access to the local grocery stores, those have maintained their operational status as being open as well. So there certainly will be access to those food locations that you are accustomed to around the AU area. When it comes to our frequency residence hall, I will go ahead and turn that over to Martin for further confirmations.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. So sorry, just double checking, I was unmuted. So yeah, so for the frequency, the way that I would encourage kind of everyone to kind of frame this in your head is we kind of talk about the housing that university operates as AU operated housing. So that includes the frequency, which is down in Tenleytown by the metro station. And with that in mind, based on the announcement last Thursday that our university is not providing a residential experience, that applies to the frequency as well, because that would kind of be counterproductive to the overall goal of reducing people being on and around campus. So that building will not be used for the coming semester at this point, and we'll have more details about that for the spring when we get to that point as well. And I think, was that it, Carlos, or was there a third piece?
Next question, will psychiatric services be in person or remote if we are in the DC area? I'm gonna refer that to Jeff.
Sure, thank you, Carlos. So psychiatric services, which are handled through the Student Health Center, will be held only if you are in DC and will be held virtually. The services through the Counseling Center will also be virtually available and only to those students right now in the DC area. However, our protocol services are available to our students 24 hours a day, anywhere you are. So again, I would refer you to the AU Counseling Center as well as the Health Center websites to check out those services. I think I got them there, Carlos.
Thank you, Jeff. Next question, concerning students in emergency situations, will American University allow them to hold on-campus housing? Will RAs be considered for this and for free? I'm gonna refer this back to Ashley and Martin.
Carlos, can you give me the first part of that question once more?
Concerning students in emergency situations, will American University allow them to hold on-campus housing? Will RAs be considered for this and for free?
Got it. So Martin referenced earlier on in the call that students do have the ability to apply for emergency housing, which is being reviewed by a central committee. So if you believe that your circumstances are such that your current environment would drastically prohibit your ability to be successful as a student for this coming year, we encourage you to request an application to fill out for emergency housing. As it relates to our RA roles specifically, we have shared today with our resident advisors that we will unfortunately not be able to have them employed as RAs for the fall. And so even if we do happen to have an RA who meets the criteria for emergency housing and they accept a spot with emergency housing, they will be doing so independently as a student, absent of any sort of financial or other reimbursements as an RA through their position officially. So like many of our colleagues across departments, what we will be looking to do is hopefully when we are able to come back together in person, that at that point in time, we would notify our student staff and they would be considered eligible to return to their roles should they choose to do so. So at this time for fall, no, there is no compensation for our RAs regardless of status within emergency housing.
Thank you, Ashley. Next question, when will I receive my financial aid refund? And I'm going to direct this to Charlene or Janelle.
Well, the refunds, yeah. So as soon as it hits the account, we have to get it back to you within a certain time frame. So the Office of Student Accounts has indicated they're going to start running them on Thursday. But there is a 7-day waiting period from the time that we receive a check and we wait those 7 days, and then we start issuing them. So if we've had your payment for several weeks, you can anticipate that they'll start going out this Friday. Anything else, Charlene?
Actually, I think the question was, when will my financial aid pay? And then when will the refunds come? And so, unfortunately, the federal government does not allow us to disperse financial aid until the start of the semester. So you can anticipate right around the 28th of August for your aid to actually show as a credit on your account, at which time Janelle, her team, everybody else will ensure that payments begin when there are refunds due, that they'll go and disperse to students. Keep in mind, though, that the university does have a schedule in which they try to send out funds. So it's not instantaneous, unfortunately. And so anticipate that there's going to be about a 5 to 7 business day lag between the time that you see, I've got a credit balance on my account, and actually receiving those funds via ACH. So that's even with the fastest form. If you're getting a paper check, anticipate a 1 to 2 week lag, okay?
Thank you, Charlene. Next question, $13 extra million were allocated to financial aid, but why financial aid is giving students more loans, but not actual aid to the students? I'm going to direct this to Charlene.
Okay. I want to start with responding to the very first piece, which is financial aid is here to help you cover any costs that you can't, right? But our resources are limited. And so we actually award federal funding, state funding, all other types of funding to you to help you cover those costs. And what you don't receive from those sources is what we as an institution try to cover for you. And I do explain to my students and families why student loans are even considered aid. To be very honest with you, the federal government is taking a risk. Basically, most students don't have income and they don't have assets. And yet the government is saying, hey, we are going to allow you to receive funding. Now, mind you, at some point, you'll have to pay interest on it. But at a very low interest rate for this year, it's 2.75% for the life of the loan. And basically they're saying, we're letting you borrow this money even though you don't meet the typical criteria for a person to go ahead and receive funding. So that's the reason that loans are even considered financial aid. But if we had the resources to go ahead and fund all of our students with AU money, we would. However, it is limited and we have to leverage all sources of funding in order to ensure that we can help everyone.
Thank you, Charlene. This is another question about student accounts. Is the credit that we have on our accounts finalized, or is AU going to change my financial aid? Is the credit that we have in our accounts finalized?
So I think that's a two-part question. Is AU going to change my financial aid? Again, the change in the modality of instruction does not impact a student's aid eligibility. The only time that AU would change your aid eligibility is if you tell us that you will not be requiring funding for your living, for instance, notifying us that you'll be at home living with family or relatives and therefore you'll be a commuter, at which point we will have to reassess your costs and determine how much of your aid you're eligible to receive. The only other time in which we would revise your financial aid is if you're receiving tuition restricted awards. For instance, say you've got a merit scholarship and a grant combination from AU. We've just awarded everybody a discount in tuition of 10%. If the amount that you initially received went all the way up and to the former cost of attendance, we're going to have to adjust it to the current tuition rate so that it doesn't exceed tuition, since it's a tuition restricted award. So simply put, you can't receive more grant or scholarship funding than the cost of tuition. So if tuition is, for simplicity's sake, $25,000 and now it is $22,000, the combination of the grant money and the scholarship money cannot exceed the $22,000.
Thank you, Charlene. This next question will be for Martin. Will housing assignments remain the same for spring semester, assuming we attend?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So at this point, kind of just to reiterate, in case anyone joined us later, we've canceled everybody's housing assignment for the fall, and we've reversed those funds on your fee bill. So with that in mind, can you hear me? Oh, okay. Getting thumbs up and thumbs down. Can you all hear me? Okay, oh, perfect, great. So thank you all. Still working around some thunder here. So yeah, so for the spring semester, again, once we know what that exactly will look like in terms of housing, we will share that out. We're expecting that in early November. With that in mind, there will be a process for students to reapply. So your fall housing assignment will not be the same as your spring at this point. It could possibly be the same in the end, but what we're going to need is for everybody to reaffirm that they still want housing by applying with us again. We'll share more details about that, including how housing assignments are going to be made. Where we left off in the fall, it was one student per bedroom. That could potentially be different for the spring. So once we have that solidified, that's where we'll need you to fill out an application to again let us know what you're looking for. I will say that we know who the folks were who had housing with us as of last Thursday, so we'll certainly keep that in mind as we kind of model out for the spring semester. But again, for that end, we just really need you to give us a little bit of time to make sure we have a good plan for you, and then watch your AU email around early November. But again, if we have more details sooner, we'll certainly share them out. But to be realistic, that's what we're expecting.
Thank you, Martin. I believe this is another question for you. I rented a few books from the campus bookstore. The books were sent to my dorm room already. Is it possible to get those books sent to my home instead? If not, what will happen with the books, the cost of them?
Yeah, so for anything that was sent to campus as our ship ahead program, those will all be sent back to where they were sent from. So again, if it came from your home address, it will go to you. If it came from a vendor, which sounds like the case here, it would be sent back to them. So what I would encourage is we were starting to send things back as a campus last Thursday. So what I would encourage there is definitely reach out to that vendor and kind of let them know the circumstances, cancel your order, and they should be able to work with you around that. I think if you are having issues and that's something you got through the campus bookstore, I would encourage reaching out to them because they would have the kind of the most detailed contact to assist there. But yeah, anything we have will go back to where it came from because that's kind of the cleanest way we can do it. And then we just need you to, on the back end, just to look for that package if it's coming to you, or again, work with the vendor that you ordered from.
Thank you, Martin. This next question is for Jessica. I am concerned about the online grading system. The A through F standard is really designed for in-person learning. So will the grading system be altered this semester?
Thanks, Carlos. I'll address a couple of questions that I see popping up that are kind of related to this one. So on the question of what will the fall schedule look like, what will grades be like, what are the deadlines, we are trying to do everything as sort of close to quote unquote normal as we can, right? So we are holding the schedule of classes steady, for example. If your class is scheduled at a certain time on a Tuesday, it will continue to meet at that time on a Tuesday if it's a synchronous class. So we're trying to make sure that we hold the class schedule as steady as possible so that your schedule remains static and you don't have to deal with big changes in your class schedule. Likewise, we are holding the academic calendar as steady as we possibly can. Classes will still start and end on the same day. The final exam schedule remains the same. Our deadlines to elect a pass-fail option or to withdraw from a class are all outlined already on the academic calendar, and we're intending to stick to that academic calendar. So in the spring, we had to make some pretty quick adjustments because everything had changed so quickly. In the fall, we are prepared to implement the academic calendar as it currently stands, including all the pass-fail and withdrawal deadlines. Related to that is the question of grading. When we think about online classes, they actually aren't designed for a pass-fail option. Our online classes, which we've done for years at the university, typically do have an A through F grading option, and that's what we plan to do for the vast majority of our classes. Students can, of course, elect a pass-fail option if they do so within the deadlines, but you need to make sure that you understand how that might count for a major class or a minor class or the AU core. So we're holding to our normal regulations. All of this is outlined in the student undergraduate regulations and on our schedule of classes and our academic calendar. But what we should anticipate is as close to our regular rules and regulations as possible, and our academic calendar, and including A through F grades in online classes, because that's how our faculty are designing them. They're designing these classes to be graded on an A through F scale.
Thank you, Jessica. Another question for you, Jessica. How will students in different time zones be able to engage and participate in class?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question, if you're in a different time zone, I would really encourage you to work with your academic advisor and look at each one of your classes and see, when does this meet and what time zone am I in, right? If you are in a time zone that has an hour difference, maybe that's okay, right? Maybe the class that meets at 9 means you meet at 10, or you meet at 11, or you meet at 8, and that's something you can handle. So look at each of your classes on the schedule of classes and see, is it a synchronous class, meaning it's expected that I meet at the same time the rest of the class is meeting, and then what time is it, and am I thinking about my time zone as opposed to the DC time zone? So do that with each of your classes and go through that with your academic advisor if you have any questions. We are also offering a limited number of asynchronous classes, which means you don't meet at a set time. So synchronous classes means the whole class is meeting at the same time with the faculty member online. Asynchronous means that you are not necessarily meeting at the same time, and you can do work on your own schedule. If you are in a time zone that is not going to let you do any of the synchronous same time offerings, you might want to look at some of those asynchronous classes. The other thing to consider, though, is if you are, for example, a student who is going to be a senior student and you know that you need a certain class to graduate and it's only offered synchronously and your time zone is 11 hours difference, talk to us, right? We want to make sure that everyone continues fully with their academic progress. If there is a class you need to graduate and you need to take it in the fall, we will make it work for you. So talk to your academic advisor, look through every class on your schedule, think through your own personal circumstances, and then talk to us if you're seeing major conflicts.
Thank you, Jessica. Next, we have a question pertaining to student ID cards. When will we receive our ID cards? Will there be a virtual version? What happens if I did not submit a picture? Martin, can you speak to that as part of move-in regarding the ID cards?
Yeah, so I actually can't speak to that. I'm not sure if anyone else knows. So where I was last aware was that we were planning to distribute them at opening in a couple weeks. I'm taking a quick look at their webpage, so I can kind of chime in if I find anything there, but I will also message some of their staff. Does anyone else know, Ashley?
Martin, yeah, sorry, you were cutting out a little bit there. So initially with your one card distribution, the goal was that students would receive those one cards when you arrived to campus and were ready to move in. As a reminder, those one cards are really designated to be your sort of on-campus tool, right? So it would house any money if you had a meal plan that you purchased, if you were living on campus, to do your laundry, and to really get you access into spaces that would be restricted otherwise to folks who shouldn't be in those spaces. We're not really doing that for this semester, and so with that plan, students won't have to sort of receive their one card unless they are coming to campus when that's been reestablished. So my understanding is that one cards will not be mailed out to folks for the same reasons that I just listed, right? Is they will eventually hold a lot of value, and we want to make sure that you have access to that directly in hand without question about where it goes. If you have not submitted a photo yet, the One Card office would greatly appreciate if you took the time to take some of those glamour shots right now and get them a shot that you really like. It really speeds up their process, and they're able to prep and print those cards so that when you do get welcome back to campus, and we will welcome you back, I promise, that we will be able to hand those out to you far more quickly. So if you have the ability to access a photo that you like of yourself or a couple different ones to test out, please go ahead and send those over to the One Card office. All of that information is on their website, and they would love you forever if you got them those photos in advance. And tell your friends too, please, and thanks.
Thank you, Ashley. Next question is for Charlene. Are we able to cancel governmental loans that we took, such as subsidized, unsubsidized loans via the school, since now we might not need them?
As I mentioned in my intro, yes, if you don't need assistance in the form of loans, we encourage you to take a look and yes, cancel those loans. It's a simple process. You can, through your AU issued email, send us a quick email at financialaid@american.edu indicating that you would like to cancel the fall portion or all of your loans if that is something that you no longer need. And so just please be sure to provide your AU ID and the amount and the semester in which you'd like to cancel. Otherwise, you can actually log into your MyAU portal and go to the accept or decline area and indicate that you no longer wish to receive that by canceling the portion that you no longer wish to receive. Either way, we'll go ahead and make sure that we can cancel that for you. And if you're not quite sure, if you're whether or not you're going to incur a balance by doing this, please reach out to your financial aid counselor. They'll be happy to help you in determining, exactly what aid will apply and whether or not you'll be able to satisfy your bill if that's a question that you have.
Thank you, Charlene. The next question is for Jessica. What measures are being taken for students looking to go into the medical or research field that needs in-person lab instruction or experience within their undergraduate education?
Yeah, another great question. I love how detailed these are and how you guys are really thinking about those future plans. Good job. So a couple of things. On these more specialized degree programs where you're thinking about med school, you have lab-based courses, please reach out to your academic advisor in that unit, because they're going to be able to talk you through the progression of classes. Like, when do I need cell biology? When do I need whatever? Can I take this lab at a different time? How will that affect future courses? So please reach out to your academic advisor and they will walk you through what each of those classes will look like and whether there will be any in-person lab experiences available in the fall. The basic answer is we won't be offering much in the way of in-person classes. So you really need to think through the question of when do I need to take various labs, and then which of my labs can be done online. Our science faculty, our STEM faculty are utterly amazing and have been coming up with just the most creative ways possible to do some of these labs online, and they're telling me they're better than some of the in-person labs they were doing. So please do make sure you reach out to your advisors and your faculty to learn what the lab experience will be like.
Thank you. Next question is for Janelle. How can we get ACH deposit?
So if you go into Eagle Finance, there's an opportunity for you to log in and sign up for it. If you go to the AU Central website and even just search help@american.edu refunds, it'll bring up a knowledge article that can direct you to where you need to go within the portal to sign up for that.
Thank you. I'm going through this list. We have answered a lot of these questions already. This question is for Martin. Suppose we are able to come back in the spring, will I have the same chance to apply to the same dorm I got in for fall?
So yeah, so with the spring, I know I've hit on this a few points at this moment. So again, we'll share more of those details with you come early November. Will you have the same chance? I can't speak to that at the moment. Again, we want to give the opportunity, and fundamentally what Housing and Residence Life is about is building community and bringing students together. So obviously we need to then kind of layer on the specific circumstances when we get to the spring. So again, pending what learning communities look like, pending a lot of other variables, we will make housing assignments based on that. I think we communicate with students every single day. We know what you're looking for, which is certainly a diversity of housing options, prices. So again, we'll keep all of that in mind as we kind of model out for the spring. So you'll just have to please be patient with us on that one, and know that again, as soon as we have some certainty on that, we'll start to share that. So again, just keep an eye on your AU email, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Martin. We have time for 2 more questions. The next will be, will AUX classes for freshmen be canceled? The class was originally designed to teach students how to adapt to DC, and we won't be going this semester. Jessica, can you provide a response to that question?
Yeah, I would actually argue that AUX is even more important this semester than it's ever been. As we talk about transitioning to college and finding a community, finding people who are going through the exact same thing you are, AUX is even more important. Importantly, what we have done this summer is redesign a lot of elements of AUX. A lot of people on this call have been working on this, actually looking at how we talk about and teach wellness to students who are in an online environment, all of the things that go with that, whether we're talking about isolation or we're talking about way too much Zoom time for all of us. Thinking about questions of how do we engage with people in an authentic and robust way online, and how do we get that sense of connection and community. We've actually restructured a whole piece of AUX to focus on how to be a successful online learner. So tips and best practices for how to succeed in online classes, and we'll be doing some of that even before the semester starts. And we've also built in really sort of central things about what's going to be happening in the fall. So building in elements of AUX that focus on things like the election and focus on things like how do we support students who are engaged in and protest activities. So all of those pieces are being incorporated into AUX to make sure that we are meeting you where you are at this exact point in time. AUX at its best is a place where we are with other people who are engaging in the same thing, and it gives us a space to do that in a supportive and community-minded way, and it gives us the ability to be flexible and nimble, right? We can talk about what's actually happening at any point in time with our students going through the same thing in the same semester in those small 19-person classes with your first-year advisor. So I think more important than ever. So AUX will be full throttle in the fall and the spring.
Thank you, Jessica. And our last question for the evening is, how much is the pricing for emergency housing? What housing buildings will be utilized for emergency housing? Martin, can you answer this?
Yeah, honored to close this out. Again, as we kind of shared earlier, the main piece is if you believe you need emergency housing for extenuating circumstances, please go to our webpage. We have our on-campus residence resources right under our announcements, and that's where you find information about the specific email to reach out to if you need emergency housing. We will be then, again, the committee is reviewing those requests. If a student is approved, they'll then get some additional information from us about what the specific building is going to be, what the prices are. We're looking into both of those right now because, again, we want to ensure you have access to a space that lets you be self-sufficient, in line with what Ashley was sharing earlier, that dining will not be operational on campus. So we want to make sure that students have kitchens. So that, again, generally speaking, narrows us down to Nebraska and frequency. But we're also looking at costs associated with those because we do know that those are some of our more pricey buildings, which then comes into effect with students who are looking for that housing and kind of your specific circumstances. So a lot has changed since last Thursday, and we're working really hard to kind of nail that down. So we will, I expect we'll have a web page with some of those details kind of publicly at a certain point as well. But for now, the main piece is just to apply through the emergencyhousing20@american.edu email address, and kind of get that process moving. And then we will follow up with anybody who's in that pipeline or has been approved as soon as we nail all that down.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to our panelists. For additional information on campus operations, please visit AU's coronavirus webpage found on our AU's homepage. There you will find daily updates, including updated Q&As, and you will be provided with an opportunity to ask questions that may not have been answered. There will be another student webinar at the same time tomorrow, focusing on the same issues as today. Please encourage your AU friends to register for attendance. Take care, be safe, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.